Okay, welcome to your Woo News for May 9th. Strange year in year Woo. Didn't intend to ever do a news a repetition kind of a video thing, but there's quite a bit of news coming out, and I've had some personal, let me get rid of that, nope, wrong one, some personal contacts to some of it. Oh, wrong one there even. Must be that guy. There we go. Okay. So we can start off with solar energies versus the Schumann resonances. Schumann resonance is the any number of frequencies that can be developed in between the surface of the Earth and the lower boundary of the ionosphere. And as the ionosphere moves up and down relative to the surface of the Earth, relative to temperature at all, the resonances change. And it has to do with long wave propagation in this area here, radio frequencies. So for instance, one of the Schumann bands is composed of lightning because of the frequencies that lightning excites within the atmosphere when it's set off. Schumann resonances are scaling higher now due to solar output. The solar output is higher in actinic rays, which means it's moving more towards a whiter and more intense white solar output. Bear in mind, a lot of people, baby boomers, all of us, were born on a planet where the sun was yellow. Everybody since, for sure, since 2000, maybe 2001, we could say, has been 100%. Anybody born in that period of time has been born on a planet with a white sun. You know, the old Superman thing, right? I don't see any superheroes, though. Anyway, though, so the solar energies are increasing in the band of what are known as actinic rays. These are the frequencies that can cause damage to humans, plants, animals, this sort of thing. If you scale to the extreme side of actinic rays, you get to the point where you can get frequency or output that causes heat that will actually damage non-living tissues. You know, it would cause wood to decay really rapidly and you know, flake off of a deck, that sort of thing. So actinic rays are well studied. They include all of the UV band, but are wider than that. These actinics are increasing in both intensity and in separation. And it is the separation component that is causing the issues with the Schumann resonance at the moment. So it's a little bit difficult to understand, but as the Earth rotates, you stand on the edge of the planet, and you're a real big guy. You stand right here, and the Earth is rotating this direction. And so it's rotating towards the sun over here. Let me see if I can get this right. Okay, so in this view, the sun would be way the hell off over here, but I'm going to draw the sun's rays as just like this right here. So this is the solar output. Okay, but the sun is way off of this board. I mean, proportionally. I don't want to give you the wrong impression. The idea is this, that as your day dawns, so you're here and you're rotating into your day relative to the sun. If this were midnight, there are certain rays that are going to be able to come on up and get you at a low level of light intensity, but nonetheless, they are there. Extreme ultraviolet, for instance, right? And as the planet rotates around its middle and brings you down into your morning, you're going to get more of the UV band, more of the ultraviolet band, but specifically, you're going to get UVA from about midnight. It increases from about midnight through to the point of visible light in which you would get, or full sun above the horizon. That's when more of the red spectrum comes on in. And as you are in the UVA, we are noticing now that there's a big separation between the UVA and the UVB, and then also UVC in a way we had not seen before. So the intensities of each of the UV bands as we separate them is rising. Now bear in mind, nature does not separate them. It just blasts out UV. We separate them into A, B, C, and so on. B is the stuff you use to make vitamin D. So B is good for you. And so you get your most UVB between 10 and 3 if you're above 32 degrees latitude, north latitude, or below that on south latitude. 10 and 3, 10 a.m., 3 p.m. So that's the time you go out to sun your balls, right? Get the hormones going. Anyway, so we're in a situation now where there's been a noticeable uptick in intensity in the UVA and a noticeable uptick in the UVB, but they're not proportional. So the UVA is expanding more than the UVB or UVC proportionally. Now the UVC, this is good that it's not expanding, okay, because that's the nasty stuff when it comes down to the surface of the Earth. It makes metal too hot to touch in about 5 minutes. Will burn you seriously, like third-degree burns if you were out there totally exposed, unprotected skin for even half hour, 40 minutes. It's just really serious stuff. It has come down to the surface of the Earth recently, that is to say post-2000, but intermittently. It is very dangerous, though, to get involved with the UVC. So we may actually get to that point as we go. Okay, so let me go back to ancient history. In ancient history, there were peoples that were exposed to conditions that were so on this planet, and these were Homo sapiens. They also may have included Neanderthal, we don't know, or Zinjanthropus man. We think it was all modern Homo sapiens that were doing this, but what they were doing was drawing pictures in caves and chiseling petroglyphs on rocks. The petroglyphs are more common in the Pacific Islands, just lack of caves, really, and lack of stuff to make lasting pigments. In North America and in the Americas and in Europe, it's more common to see cave paintings depicting this. But basically, it's a depiction of a stick being stuck out of a cartoon fashion, almost out of the mouth of a cave, and a picture of a sun, and the stick catches on fire. And it was like, well, we didn't go out that day, and then another stick gets out there and gets a little charred. And then it's okay, we can go. And pictures of people avoiding daylight and going out at night to do things like hunt, gather foods, and so on, because the actinic rays were just too intense to survive under those circumstances. We also have remnants of UV protective goggles made out of fish skin, and the technology still existed in the Inuit, what we used to call Eskimo people in Alaska, where they would use fish skin to make UV filtering goggles, basically. And it was highly effective, worked very well. Protected the eyes, and especially on the ice, you can imagine the UV bouncing off everywhere. It's just very difficult to navigate under those circumstances. So anyway, though, we do have an uptick in these solar energies. It is causing Schumann resonance changes. This is probably indicative of upcoming reactions on the planet's part. That usually is an expansion episode, so we can expect more earthquakes, volcanoes, etc., as well as very erratic weather, very suddenly intense and then almost passive aggressive, suddenly intense and then it just like sags away as that intensity moves off. It's an issue of the high pressure and low pressure gradients also being affected by what's going on relative to the Schumann resonance, because that allows the things to move, the low pressure systems to move relative to the electrical lines of force within our our atmosphere and the magnetosphere controlling it all. It's really complex. This is why I don't trust weather models, because they don't take into account the electrical currents in the atmosphere, the magnetics of the planet, this sort of thing, when they're predicting where a particular low pressure system will go. In any event, so moving on. So that's with the solar energy. So we can expect that to be essentially the cause, the proximal cause of the upcoming wild weather we're going to have, including these big sweeping patterns of cold weather coming down from the poles or coming up from the pole if you're in the southern hemisphere. Those are going to be also triggered by the solar activity. We'll see those over this next probably 4 months. We'll see some very unusual polar vortices coming on down. So the next one is NASA and its Mars actions and the targeted search. So I'm a military brat. I'm inculcated. I lived the first 17 years of my life in the U.S. Army. My father was a field officer for a great number of those years. This meant that I was very much aware of everything relating to moving and managing men and material in the field, right? Doing things, right, with people and material logistics required, et cetera, in the natural course of a human activity when there's a goal that you want to reach, and it may be complex, many people involved, and so on. There are patterns that emerge that can suggest that such a thing is ongoing. And I think that I've seen that, and that I'm saying that the NASA is using its little helicopter on Mars in a targeted search. All right, not just a general search, not like, hey guys, let's just go cruise around and see what's up there. Not like us regular humans that don't know anything, all right? These guys are hunting for something very specific, and it's my opinion that they know what they're looking for, and they know where it is likely to be found, and they're doing a very specific kind of photographing exercise, trying to do two things, trying to locate whatever it is they're hunting for. So it's a pattern search that they're doing, but they're also trying to disguise the fact that they are doing a pattern search. And they're not very good at the latter part of it, because the former part of it betrays the action very completely. So I don't know what they're hunting for, but they are hunting for something extremely specific. So it would be like, if they know that there's a destroyed city under the sands that they're looking at, they're not looking for remnants of that destroyed city. They're looking for a very particular house, because they're looking for something in it, or a very particular structure, okay, not house necessarily. So they're looking for a specific thing. Because of the this is my conclusion from the nature of the movements that helicopter and the new Perseverance rover have been doing relative to the photography patterns that they're laying down. Some of those patterns are disguised, but interestingly betrayed. And I won't go in their own actions. And I won't go any further into that. Not that they could alter it and they wouldn't give a shit that I know this, or that I suspect this. I'm just a loon on the internet. But nonetheless, we should pay attention to the area and what they're, where they have that little helicopter flying. And we'll see probably over the next couple of weeks that I'm correct, and it'll keep zeroing in this tight little sort of spiral search pattern. Not really a spiral, there's been some deviation on it. But anyway, so then for the news, we got to get into the mainstream media, which is, I mean, these people are going batshit. But also, I really should put it as mainstream media and I guess we're going to have to just say deep state, because it's global. It's not just here in the U.S., and it's the deep state is thicker here in the United States than the deep state layers are thicker here in the United States than they are in, say, Somalia, right? There's fewer layers there, but it's even there. There are thick layers in Dubai, there are thick layers every place anymore, in Turkey, all through the Middle East. So the deep state it had been metastasizing over the whole planet, but it's haven't run into some big problems. And its main functionary, its main apparatchik collective, the MSM, the mainstream media, has been having to now start fighting intense defensive battles on dozens of fronts, and new fronts popping up all the time. This is a war, by the way. That's why I'm describing it this way. This is your woo war news, right? If you go over to YouTube, I haven't moved them all over, but there's a lot of woo videos over on my YouTube channel, and they go into some of the precursor stuff to the things that we're seeing now. So a number of months back, I discussed what we're actually dealing with today in a broad brush as to the overwooing and the woo wars and how all this is going to start playing out. And as we see now, it is indeed coming out. So, for instance, we see that there's the veil is thinning over the Biden-cheated White House. If you go to ABC News recently, there was an ABC News story from in front of the White House, and clearly you can see that all of a sudden Washington, D.C., a perfectly flat swamp area, recovered swampland, almost ready to sink back into the swampland of the Potomac River estuary region in the Chesapeake Bay at any given moment, right, is now got a very large hill, probably a 10, 20-story hill with cell towers on top of it. So it's like, that ain't the White House that I've seen in Washington, D.C. I've been there, right, repeatedly, a bunch of times. And that ain't the White House I've seen, because there's no fucking hills around the White House in Washington, D.C. So the veil is thinning, right? I don't want to use the word mask, but the veil of the illusion is thinning around this. And now we have to ask ourselves, is this a slip up? Is it a psychological breakdown where they want to, somebody at an editor or somebody at a low-level functionary wants to betray this information because they didn't clip it out? Was the cameraman doing it deliberately in the angle that was shot? Are they trying to leak this information out because they probably feel bad that they're lying to you at some core level, that they're participating in this grand fraud? The news people, I mean, the actual individual humans that are acting as the reporters and these people in those various roles. So I would suspect that kind of stuff would occur, and it does indeed seem to be occurring quite frequently. Also, now we're starting to see leaked videos of things like the White House, press room, and it's not in the White House. It's a real cool studio, but it's not the White House. Again, you can recognize the architecture is entirely different. Anyway, so the White House veil stuff is thinning. I suspect that we're getting close to the point where it'll be difficult for them to maintain the illusion, that they can pretend that they're actually standing in front of the White House without cracking up over it, somehow letting that out, because the lie is so large and everybody knows that it's a lie. Or lots and lots and lots and lots of people do know it is a lie. So, but if you go over to BitChute, you'll see the videos of them that are leaking out around this. Now, moving on to stuff, I got a lot of stuff to do today. Hoping to get some tractor work done. It's been raining intermittently. So the Arizona audit is providing much drama on the part of the MSM. It is effective. The citizens of Arizona are doing this. They've run into some problems. I'm not going to give you the details. There's plenty of people doing that. My point was to bring up its reaction within the mainstream media, and how the mainstream media is now has now tried two narratives that have fallen extremely flat, and they're in the process, which was that it was a Republican right-wing conspiracy, and that it was independent of it being a Trump supporter conspiracy. So the first thing was, it's all the Trump supporters, right? So they're instantly, they label, and but that didn't stick. And then it didn't stick that they were right-wing white supremacists and stuff. So I don't know what they're going to come up with for a third new narrative approach on the Arizona audit, but none of them are taking. I think that they may be wondering about the false flag even as to whether or not to go and attack the audit, pretending to be, you know, Proud Boys or something. You know, like maybe the right wing is going to be irritated with these people doing that or something. Anyway, the narrative is falling apart, and you can see the language expressed indicating individual on the part of certain reporters, where you know they have a little bit of latitude, and then also collective in those news shows in the mainstream media, where you know that they have to say what is on that teleprompter or they're out that day. And the language is reflecting an increasing level of desperation. Now, this desperation is linguistically leading the major desperation that the population is going to follow in on through the summer. But basically what I'm saying is that the desperation language coming out of the mainstream media now is rising faster and on a steeper curve than the economic desperation and political desperation, etc., that's hitting the rest of the planet. This, I think, is very, very, very good. It means that we may get a crack-up boom, a crack-up period within the mainstream media sooner than I expected. Now, that would be very good news, because the mainstream media, being the main linchpin that's keeping the deep state afloat, if it should fail, the liberation, the freedom, would be great for all of us. It'd be instantly throwing us into the chaos of having to replace it and having to build this new. It's not just replace the mainstream media. It's not replace the narrative, the media guys. It is coming up with a collective shared narrative that makes sense, given that we don't know a whole lot about what these fuckers have been hiding, right? So it will take us some time to come out with something that we can all feel is reasonably solid, especially in this day and age. You know, because I wouldn't trust a Truth and Reconciliation Committee set up by any fucking government. It just isn't going to happen. You know, we've seen that bullshit before. So it'll have to be some kind of a grassroots effort to stabilize the narrative and extract from the remnants of the MSM those things that we need that are factual that they've been hiding, or the deep state, however you want to think about it. Okay, so associated with the Arizona audit, we've now got the MyPillow guy saying that he's got his hands on these Dominion machines. So we can suspect that, A, that he's probably very factual about that, and B, that the Dominion people are shitting the small, sharp ones today, and will be doing so for some period of time. Here's the thing. Sometime back when all of the election shit was going down and I saw all of the crap, I wasn't paying much attention, but I saw the first 6,000 vote flip on election night, and I thought, uh-oh, shit's happening. And then it got worse, got worse, got worse, got worse. Okay, so I started investigating Dominion machines on my own and started putting out a number of tweets about them, because I found all kinds of stuff about Dominion, especially relative to California and what is known as a red team. So the state of California had to analyze Dominion machines and certify them as being solid. Now, there was probably bribery involved, but they got certified and all kinds of stuff. Because, here's the thing, I think this was like in 2016. I haven't looked at any of this material in a while, but you can go back and find it on the internet. It's there. It's in my old Twitter feed too. It's in my Twitter feed. But like in 2016, California had a red team. A red team is an assault team. You put together a bunch of hackers and crackers and penetration testers, and you design a plan, and you assault or attack a particular electronic software castle, basically. And here they were attacking the Dominion machines, and they found all kinds of shit. The leader of that red team for California did just a first-rate, absolutely world-class job, right? When it comes time to go hack the space aliens, we need people like this guy. That red team did it precisely right, and then all of their results were basically ignored by the politicals, who then certified the Dominion machines. But this guy found all kinds of really cool stuff about the Dominion machines, which I noted at that time, back in November. In December, and put out some tweets about, which led to my being contacted at some point after that. I'm not going to go into any details, to ask if I would be interested in being on a software teardown team. And I said I'd love to, but I just can't, right? My circumstances here prevent me from being able to go there, and you'd have to go there to do this. But the idea was that at some point, somebody was going to put together a software teardown team to do the Dominion machines in a way that had not been done by California. Not a red team where they assault it through the net and try and bust it and figure it out and all that kind of stuff, but they don't actually have the source code or anything, right? They don't have the actual operational, they have the machines and they can get at it, but there's constraints on the red team. It's not like they've got the carte blanche and can just take the machine there and strip it down and get at it. That's what is called a software teardown team. Now, software industry is pretty cagey, right? I mean, it's filled with practices that are less than ethical. And so for some kinds of software assaults, a company might hire somebody to go in, an analyst like myself, and use a piece of software. Use every single function and feature that software has, making notes on every single one of them as they went through. And then they would take all these notes and all of the user experience, and they would hand it over to a software engineer, who would then take that material and basically reverse engineer the software that the user experience guy played with. And this was a legal way of copying somebody's software without ever actually really copying the software. You copied the functionality of it. Now, there are tools for copying software, literally copying it from one machine to another. But there's a whole nother layer of this stuff in the teardown, all right? There are tools that are put out that allow you to do things like exe to header, okay? Executable to header is a program, exe number 2 HDR .exe is a executable program that you run on machines, and you aim it at a chunk of software, and it goes through and it removes all the function names, removes the function addresses, it extracts these and it puts them in a list for you. And so you get a list of the function names, the memory addresses they're messing with, the memory range, how much memory they're being allocated, things like this. And you do it through these basic function calls within the machines that I won't bore you with. Most people don't need to know any of it. And, but anyway, you get a list that is basically lots and lots and lots of numbers. But there's one really cool part about exe to header. All right, that's what I'm getting into the Dominion machines right now, and I'm making a prediction here, okay? If indeed they have the Dominion machines, all the software and so on, then I suspect that their software teardown team will use exe to header. And it will produce a long list of what are known as function calls. And so this list would be in like a comma-separated thing, and you'd put it into a spreadsheet, and you'd have like a name here of the function call. And then you'd have address 1, and then dozens and dozens and dozens of rows of numbers. But we don't care about any of that. They do. The teardown team cares about that very much. But there's a different political issue here that they're going to run into, and this is my prediction, okay? Because I know programmers, because I've worked with programmers from all different countries, all around the planet, as a consultant and a software engineer, and as a programmer and a coder myself. And programmers have and are constrained to specific things, right? So they will, this function thing here is a name, and it will come back as something like CP2 NTS, okay? And so So that would be a computer programmer's way of writing a function that other computer programmers will have to call out of this library to do their part of the program. And so you have low-level people writing these low-level service, microservice kind of functions. And they write them like this frequently. And that would be copied to a network server. And so whatever is in memory address here all the way out to here is copied to a network server, and there is the network server address over there. So it's like, aha, once you understand how the programmers will natively, naturally try and name functions, then this Exida header program, and there's many others that are much more complete, that map them all out and so on. But it shows you the names of all of the different functions. You just list them. You know, the software doesn't care about them. But it's not gonna trigger on some of these names, but I know programmers, right? So they're gonna have functions in there. I swear. Okay, so this is a prediction, and we'll see later on, and maybe I can get hold of some of the people that are actually in the software teardown team, and we'll find out if they'll release this information later on. But I bet you they find functions in there that are like cheat bigly. Okay, I kid you not. I kid you not. You know, I've written software where I had to call functions that were fuck you too and fuck you three. So, you know, programmers can be real buttheads, but they need to know all of this stuff. So they can't have, it complicates things for a programmer to have to write a program in which he's writing stuff that he knows is going to go and cheat and move data and do this kind of stuff, like swap votes. Probably has a thing in there that says swap votes this much or swap votes more, you know, and they'll have those. So the Exida header stuff will probably reveal a whole lot to the teardown team, but also to the rest of us about the software and how it was used to cheat. Now, mainstream media is freaking out about all of this, and they don't know how to deal with it because it's just going to keep going and keep going and keep going until they're undone. Deep State is going to be totally revealed. The secrets revealed are coming out in this year, and they're all breaking down and so on. Now, the Deep State is not the U.S. military. Okay, there are elements of the U.S. military that are actively involved in the Deep State, but the two are not synonymous. They're not synonymous in any country. The military is not necessarily anything other than a tool of the Deep State, and many militaries would prefer to be not a tool of the Deep State. They would prefer to be doing the job that they're supposed to do, which is to protect the citizenry, et cetera, et cetera. And they're frequently not allowed to do that because the Deep State is basically empire, and it wants to protect empire. So, anyway, they don't know what they're going to do about this. The software teardown team is their worst, one of their worst nightmares. They are probably shitting bricks right now, and there's people down the chain that are just losing it, because they're the ones that they know they're the minions. They're going to go to jail first, right? And they're going to be squeezed by both sides, and they don't like that idea. Anyway, so we can forget about the political for a second and moved on to the spike protein shedding. Okay, so it's come out enough now, the spike protein shedding, that the mainstream media is officially, through the social fact checkers, the professional liars, they're actually out there having to respond and to deny that you can shed the spike protein. And they're using all kinds of weasel words, and they're lying because you can shed the cells, and therefore the spike protein sheds with those cells. Also, we have to know that the, let's jump over this one here down to strange science, the spike protein guesses. So there have been a number of analyses by Salk and Pfizer and Moderna and others about the spike protein in the vaxes. And what they're saying is that, the spike protein gets taken up into the lymph system, and it is encoded in your immune system, and that's as far as it goes. Or at a worst case, it would get attached to and anchored to, because it has this little feature on it, they say it's going to anchor to a cell. Well, that's not a good thing in my opinion anyway. But they do acknowledge, Salk has, the Salk Institute has come out with a thing saying that the spike protein in and of itself can cause damage to blood system, and it's not a good thing to have in your body, especially if it goes walkabout, okay? And then the rest of the articles are all about how it can't go walkabout. But those are all guesses. Those are all best case guesses because they do not know. They've never done an mRNA product successfully. This one is using the part of the bioweapon that is the deadly part, which is the spike protein. So this is akin to the idea that they take the blade off of a knife and they stab you with just that blade all over, as though that was going to, as though the handle of the knife was the nasty part and the blade wasn't causing any issues. So they're putting in a product in you that in and of itself and is scientifically acknowledged to cause problems. And then they're saying it can't cause problems because of X, Y, and Z, but they're all basically guessing. They have no sure and certain knowledge, and all of the fact checkers are basically lying, explicitly lying, because they're having to find reasons that this stuff is true. So they're having to cherry pick data and reasoning around a very complex subject. There's issues all the way down with the spike protein, all the way down into the lab animals that they're using as test subjects, because some of these lab animals have the capacity to deal with the spike protein in ways that we do not. Yet they're saying that these lab animals are effectively a model for humans. And it's like, whoa, that can't happen. You got to understand that hamsters are going to deal with spike protein in a different fashion, especially because of their environment, Anyway, so it's all guesses at that level. And now it has led us to the crimes against humanity lawsuit that's popping up. And I think that now there's over 1,000 lawyers and something like 10,000 doctors that have signed up on this thing, right? So it's getting real serious, which is good, because we've got to stop this vaccination stuff. I won't go into it. We've had personal problems with the dumbass relatives who've gotten vaxxed. I guess that's it. That's pretty good. Okay, so magnet work continues. We're getting, I'm getting some pretty good responses on some of the stuff I'm doing. It's very slow because I got to wait for more materials, but at least I'm getting the office cleaned up and I can use the gym section of it a little bit better without all the crap there. And there have been some interesting responses that I can't for sure assign a meaning to yet out of some of the materials we're messing with, some of those few that we do have here. So I do have some pure materials here that are just in a different form that are difficult to deal with, and I've just been messing about with those. And so I think that this approach will yield progress, at least in determining if there is something there. So we're getting close to being able to say, okay, in this particular material search, we can determine at this very beginning if it's worth going the rest of the way. If this idea is too squirrely, we can just abandon it and then go on to the next phase. And so we'll know pretty quick. And that's always exciting, because if you don't abandon it, it means that, you've got enough tentative positive results to pursue basically a daunting materials analysis. But tentative results like that are intriguing. Anyway, I guess that's it for Woo News for May 9th. There's tons and tons and tons of crap happening, of course. The planet is going through its own issues, the solar system as well, and then all of humanity hanging about on it. And we're going to have some serious issues here, not just in the U.S., but all throughout the planet, as our main dollar empire deep state continues to crumble. I can't believe that they're making this many stupid mistakes. I can understand it, but I would have thought that they would have been better prepared and things, but just not, I guess. Anyway, so I've got a couple of busy weeks ahead of me. it looks like maybe I'll be able to do things on the weekend more easily, what with all of the other crud going. If I can through the week, yeah, and there's a few interviews and so on that I've got set up. But even those are getting harder to do because of the breakdowns all the way around in our social order. People are under stress, and it's difficult to get things set up. Okay, guys, live long and prosper, space aliens or not.